Classic World of Warcraft has always been a very social game at its core, more so than pretty much any other version of the game. The decisions you make and how you carry yourself in the world really do matter. Your reputation on a server follows you around, and when you do something genuinely awful, people will remember. On hardcore realms especially, the stakes are even higher. A badly timed grief for a cruel trick can end a character somebody has spent countless hours on. So I thought today, why not go through some of the most evil things you can possibly do as a player to another player in Classic World of Warcraft, just out of the scientific interest of it, of course. Some of these are minor inconveniences which are really just bad etiquette, others are things that can cost somebody tons of progress. And one of them is so specifically targeted and deliberate that I don't think there can be anything worse than it. But with that said, these have to be the most evil things you can do in Classic World of Warcraft. But before we go on, make sure you stick around to the end of this section, because there are some exclusive bonuses that you don't want to miss out on. I want to tell you about a game that you maybe have heard about once or twice before. New to this game is BIGDAWG, a support legendary who makes everyone around him more effective every single turn. He accelerates allies, cleanses debuffs, and calls the whole team to strike as one. Attackers hit harder, defenders hold longer, and supports themselves become even more impactful. He really is an all-around pick and one of the best legendaries in the game. The game I'm talking about is of course Raid Shadow Legends, and what I appreciate about support champions like BIGDAWG is they shift how you approach a fight. Instead of just brute forcing through with damage, they make your whole team more effective and reward actual strategy. A lot of the tougher encounters need that, and building around a champion who enables your roster is genuinely satisfying. You can download via the link in the description or scan the QR code. New players will get bonuses only available via my link. You'll instantly unlock the legendary champion Narma the Returned, and then reach level 10 to also grab the epic champion Uugo for your roster as well. On top of that, you can pick one promo code for a free legendary of your choice. You have BIGDAWG for Torvald, GETALICE for Alice the Wanderer, KITTYCUT for Cheshire Cat, GOFAST for Razzlevarg, or Wrath for BIGDAWG. Act fast though, as all this is only available through my link within 48 hours of downloading. Many thanks to Raid for supporting the channel today. Let's get on back to WoW. We're going to start with something that I think is more on the trolling side of the spectrum, rather than being outright malice, but it still earns a spot here because it is nearly always deliberate. Rogues learn an ability called Distract, where they throw something at a target location, causing nearby enemies and enemy players to snap their attention to the point of impact. The intended use is pretty obvious. You're turning mobs away from you so you can stealth past them or get a sap off easier. It's useful, it's clever, and it's a classic rogue ability. But some people have realized other things about Distract, because Distract physically turns enemy characters to face a different direction. If you're walking across a narrow ledge or a gangplank and suddenly change direction, you're going to be walking straight off the edge. And Classic WoW has no shortage of places which could probably use hand railings. Think about the gangplanks going onto boats in places such as Booty Bay, the chains going down the center of Blackrock Mountain, or the Zeppelin Tower in the Undercity. All of these have choke points where geometry punishes any sudden change in direction. Now, the reason why this is just trolling to me is because most of these falls aren't lethal, they're not anywhere near that dangerous. It's just a rogue player doing rogue things in a world which allows you to interact with other players. The next one is a quieter, more passive kind of evil that I don't think many people will have done on purpose. Imagine you come across a treasure chest glowing in the open world. You open it up and inside you find a handful of decent items, maybe a bit of gold or silver, a crafting material you can use, probably a green item or the likes, and you take everything you want, but rather than clearing out the chest entirely, you leave one item behind. Maybe a bit of cheese or a piece of linen, something you couldn't fit in your bag or you thought, actually I don't really want that. But here is the problem with that, because chests in Classic WoW will only reset their loot and become eligible to respawn after they have been completely emptied. So if any item remains inside when you've looted that chest, well, the next person to come along excited to open that chest is going to find that single bit of cheese and be so disappointed. So leaving the random item in the chest isn't just necessarily you being lazy, it's kind of griefing the next person to find it as well. So when you're in the open world, always empty out chests if you're going to search them. The next one is also related to chests too, and it's a classic scenario we've all seen. So imagine someone's there in combat with a mob that happens to be standing right next to a resource node or a chest. Their intention is pretty obvious, they're clearing the way so they can safely loot it. And then another player wanders over and thinks, oh, thanks for clearing out that mob, I'll just help myself to that while you're busy. This has been a source of conflict in vanilla WoW since, well, just about forever really. There's no in-game mechanic that prevents it, or there's no rulebook that says you shouldn't do it, but you know you shouldn't do it really. At the end of the day, if somebody's fighting a mob next to something, you know they're going to be taking it next. That's the reason why they're there. Unless of course we're talking about Black Lotus, at which point I think all the rules just instantly go out the window and people will do whatever they can to secure it. Then again, there are PvP servers too, where you can engage in a bit of PvP over any resource or node in the open world. Still, using somebody else's combat as an opportunity to take a node from them has to have a place on this list. Next one is also sort of regarding PvP, or lack of PvP should I say. So Alterac Valley is one of the most beloved battlegrounds in classic history. A proper large-scale war with objectives, resources, reinforcements, and a huge map that feels genuinely different from other battlegrounds. When you zone in, there's a ton to do. You've got capturing the towers, you've got killing the enemy lieutenants, turning in resources, fighting over graveyards, you have questing, you have pushing towards the enemy base. There's just a lot going on here, and most players are there for farming honor or battleground marks depending on which expansion you're playing this battleground in. But there are some players who join AV for none of those reasons actually. They have their entirely own agenda. You see in Alterac Valley there are a lot of NPCs as well, NPCs which you can farm for experience, such as the Harpy Cave for example. So what players who are still in the leveling portion of the game will do is join the battleground and then immediately head to a low population place to farm experience, completely ignoring every other objective that the battleground has. You'll still get your battleground marks, you'll still get honor, and you'll still get reputation, whilst you're also gaining experience and even a little bit of gold. From an efficiency standpoint, this is like 5 wins in a row. It really is hard to beat, but at the same time you're joining a battleground, the keyword being battleground, you know, PvP, and then heading to a cave full of PvE mobs and just farming experience, which is contributing nothing towards you winning the actual game. And this is something that will always happen in AV, and there will always be community pushback to it, because there's no rule against doing this. You're technically just joining the battleground and doing things which are possible, but the chance for you to catch some reports for non-participation, I would say, is pretty high. In fact, I would not be surprised if there's people listening to this right now who know they have been banned for doing this. And whilst yes, you're not technically breaking any rules, you kind of know it's not really the right thing to do either. So because of that, that's why I'm putting it on this list. Next up is something everyone has to do, and that is trusting strangers in Classic WoW. So in Classic WoW, enchanting works very differently from how later versions of the game handle it. There are no enchanting vellums, and you can't list enchants on the auction house. That didn't happen until Inscription in Wrath of the Lich King. In Vanilla Classic and TBC, you have to physically trade your materials to the enchanter and trust that they will do what you're asking them to do. And that can be a significant amount of trust. For endgame enchants especially, you can be handing over materials worth hundreds of gold to a complete stranger, someone you've just found advertising in the trade chat channel. This isn't necessarily just enchanting either. This can be for making high ticket items such as Lionheart Helm, or now in TBC you have tons of gear using various primals and so on. The scam is pretty simple and effective. You advertise yourself as being able to make something, take somebody's materials in a trade, and then you just disappear off into the horizon. I think now with our server sizes that are so much larger too, it's way easier for scammers to blend into the crowd and to get away with this multiple times before they're caught. Typically on smaller servers where community matters more, you would get called out for this much faster by many more people. Still, if you're ever looking for an enchanter or somebody to create items, just look out for the people who are spamming consistently every day. There's usually some people who are really keen on offering these kind of services, and they're always making themselves available. At the same time, these people want regular customers too, so if you find someone that's good, just add them to your friends or keep their name in the back of your mind and go back to them again. The next one is something I only really learned about more recently, especially with the advent of hardcore realms, but I had to include it in the video because it's so evil for how deliberate it is. So fall damage in classic World of Warcraft is calculated as a percentage of your total health. The higher you fall, the more damage you'll take as a proportion of your health bar. However, if when you're falling, let's say you gained a ton of extra health, your total percentage health would be reduced, making a much shorter fall actually still lethal. Now what some players worked out, priest players, may I add, is that you could buff people whilst they are jumping off something with power word fortitude, and it will increase their maximum health drastically. I would say if you're a higher level priest buffing a lower level player, your power word fortitude will be downranked to some extent, but it can easily increase their maximum health by 30% or more. The Undercity Zeppelin jump is the most commonly cited example of people doing this. It's a jump that many players know is safe to take as a little shortcut rather than waiting for the Zeppelin to get all the way in, but with a freshly applied high rank of fortitude increasing their total health as you fall, what was something you knew you could survive suddenly became a lethal jump. This is particularly catastrophic in hardcore, where death means the end of a character entirely, but it requires a priest to be in the right place at the right time, looking for somebody who's jumping early to try and save a few seconds. This is definitely one of the more evil things you can do in the game, and if you're trying to jump off a Zeppelin to save a few seconds, just think about what you're doing before you take that leap. The next one is about world buffs. So if you played Vanilla Classic in 2019, you'll know we did not have the Chrono Boom Displacer, and it made world buffs into an entirely different experience. Well, I say we didn't have the Chrono Boom, technically it was introduced right at the end of Naxx before TBC, but effectively for the entire first run back of Vanilla we didn't have it. You had to spend time planning your way through the world, getting your Oni buff in a capital city, ZG buffs, Diamond Tribute buffs, Songflower, and so on. Now the thing was, several of these buffs were magic dispellable, which meant they could be removed by things such as Purge, Fellhunter's Devour Magic, Dispel Magic, and similar effects. In particular, the dispellable ones were Songflower Serenade and the Diamond Tribute buffs, and some players would level characters just to a high enough point where they could learn Dispel Magic or Purge, and then they would park their character in a high traffic area of a capital city, and then wait for somebody with a full stack of world buffs to walk past, resurrect their character out of ghost form, and try to dispel their buffs. There were some people floating an argument that this was legitimate PvP and part of the vanilla experience back then, but honestly, looking back then, I'm pretty sure it was just rage bait. I mean, these people's personality was rage bait. If you're standing around the capital city for multiple hours looking to dispel people and then posting it on Discord, I mean, come on, what are we doing here? There were other ways you could protect your world buffs too, such as loading yourself up with trash magic dispellable buffs, or even using low tier scrolls. Those were magical effects too that I always used. Still, I'm glad we don't have to mess around doing that anymore, and though world buffs are still not entirely risk-free, they're certainly a lot less risky than they used to be. The next one is probably the oldest evil action in World of Warcraft, and something which absolutely will predate World of Warcraft, and that is ninja looting. Ninja looting, or just feeling as though the loot has gone to the wrong person, may be the biggest cause of drama in this game beyond anything else. And the concept behind it is very simple. You take loot that was not intended for you, usually in a group or raid context. The range of severity on ninja looting can be enormous. On the mild end, someone rolls need on a dungeon item that they don't particularly need. Imagine somebody already has a level 25 blue item and they roll need on a level 30 item, whilst you have a level 20 green item. I mean, yes, it's an upgrade for both of you, but you don't feel good about it, do you know what I mean? On the severe end, a master looter in a raid distributes a hard-earned piece of gear to themselves or a friend, despite prior agreements on a loot system. And depending on the expansion you're playing, losing out on items can be absolutely devastating. If you ever had a big ticket item ninja'd from you, you will remember it forever. That kind of stuff just doesn't leave your brain, I swear. I mean, imagine losing out on Drakefang Talisman in BWL, or Dragonspine Trophy from Gruul, or even seeing a large drop now in TBC and the raid leader just decides, yeah, I think I'll have that one for myself. You may not have known that Blizzard actually does have a stance on ninja looting in the TOS. If, for example, prior to the raid starting, the raid leader has agreed to do highest roll wins an item, and then they don't honor that, Blizzard can actually action that. I'm not sure how consistent they are at actioning it, but at least they say they will do so. However, MS over OS isn't considered a viable loot system, because at the end of the day, Blizzard isn't going to figure out which item is better for who. But if you are joining a pug, it's always a good idea to try and get the loot rules in writing. It probably won't change much in the long term, but you might as well. Still, ninja looting absolutely has to have a place on this list, which means last but not least, I have what I consider to be genuinely the most evil thing you can possibly do in classic World of Warcraft. And note that this has to be done deliberately as well, because I know some people will be listening to this and they've done it by accident. And if you've done it by accident, it's okay. Ignorance is bliss after all. But if you've done this on purpose, then that's entirely something else. So Broken Tooth is a rare mountain lion found in the Badlands, and he's a rare spawn elite. What makes him stand out and why people want to find him is his attack speed, he attacks every 1 second. This makes him really desirable for hunters. A really fast attack speed on your pet will knock spellcasters back all the time, and it will be super annoying for them. Broken 2 spawns in about 3 different locations in the Badlands, and his respawn timer runs anywhere from about 6 to 8 hours after being killed or tamed. This means a hunter who really wants this pet is likely going to spend multiple sessions camping out across those spawn points, using Eagle Eye to scout locations, and just doing lap after lap of the zone. This is a serious time investment, and if it's early on in a server, is also super competitive. And then picture the hunter, he's found Broken 2, finally he's so happy, midway through taming it, and then you just decide to palm pyro Broken Tooth instead, killing him off for some random trash items. I think what you get in return for this would go well beyond just angry whispers, but out of everything you could possibly do to ruin someone's day in Classic WoW, this for me is number 1. A lot of social dynamics in this game make it great, but that doesn't mean there can't be some bad ones as well, and these have to be some of the worst. Classic WoW's social layer is part of what makes it feel different to other games. The fact you can do real lasting harm to other players' experience, not through mechanics but through choices, gives it an extra layer that modern games just tend to not really have. Well, that is unless they're designed entirely around those experiences, that is. But this is kind of more of an extra thing within the world, somewhat unintentional at times, but developers left them in there for players to discover just how evil you can be in an online world. So whether you've been on the receiving end of any of these or you're learning about them for the first time, at least now you know what to watch out for. Thanks again to Raid for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to use my link or QR code and get tons of free rewards. And with that said, as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.